Okay. Hello. Okay. And music is on. Hello, Brother Ira.
You doing, sir?
I'm pulling my hair out. Um,
Yeah, I do. This Dr. Beach man, he's a character.
yes, sir. I just had, yeah, Dr. Beach call me. I need to know the spelling of the third person that's going to be here.
All I have is Dr. Pete. I know that's what his last name. Okay.
Pete Odaro? Okay.
Yeah, P-E-T-T-P-E-T-E.
P-E-T-E
No, P,
Odaro.
no, P-E, like P-E-T-E.
That's what I said. P-E-T-E
Right, yes.
Odaro.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Peter Odaro, Niobe, Kenya. That's it. Okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay, got it. All right. We got
Ready when you are, Scott.
we got music on. We got everything ready. But I'm gonna have to really do some stuff while you're talking. Okay, so don't ask me any questions. In five, four, three.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Middle Tennessee, Baltimore, Maryland, Scottsdale, Arizona, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Montgomery, Alabama, Portland, Oregon, Jackson, Mississippi, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Orlando, Florida, and Kansas City, Missouri, home of the NFL champion, Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome to the Missouri Champion Race for October the 7th. 2023. My name is Al Folks, your host and creator along with Elder Allen. How you doing, Rev?
Fine.
And how's the wife doing and the family?
Fine. And we got the little fire director making all this noise.
Well, right now, Rev, he know he wanted to be on the show today. That's all that is, okay? And we can't. He will not be denied. Put it like that. Okay, will not be denied. So, so you're definitely doing that. I mean, right now, people have a very special show today that we're going to be broadcasting on our stream, Ferguson University, hottopic.com, and also on an international stream, which is going to be connected to you as we go into the month of October. And right now, we'll be joined by Scott Owens, who's busy right now, making preparations for our guests, coming up for us very shortly. And also, we were joined by Mr. Chuck DeBow III. And we're broadcasting live on Ferguson USA, hottopic.com, from beautiful Ferguson, Missouri, via Woodson Terrace, North County, North St. Louis, Arnhem, Missouri, and you can get heard on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And also, if you miss our program today, you can hear it again tomorrow at 1 o'clock tomorrow, again on Wednesday at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3. And also, you can always find us on Spotify and all of your other podcast sites. And right now, without further ado, we will have prayer on a beautiful shelter with Pastor Lyles, Pastor Walnut Point Baptist Church that's located North St. Louis at 5547 Goodland Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri 63123. Put that 63120. Put that in your GPS. And we need the prayer today. We be featured with Elder Allen Lyles, who's the pastor of the great Walnut Park Baptist Church, located in Walnut Park, in the Walnut Park neighborhood at 5547 Goodland Avenue, in Missouri 63120. Next one you will hear that will be that Pastor Allen Lyles of the Walnut Park Baptist Church at 5547 Goodland Avenue in North St. Louis at 63120. Top morning to you, Rev. Top afternoon to you, Rev.
Same to you.
And life is good. So what you got for us this week?
Let's bow our heads.
Yes, sir.
Heavenly Father, We thank you for waking us up this morning. You didn't have to, but you did. And Heavenly Father, I ask you to bless the sick all in the universe. And Heavenly Father, we know that we're going to have a wonderful fellowship with you this afternoon. And we just give great thanks for that. In Jesus' most precious name, amen.
Amen, Rev. We thank you for that prayer, and needless to say, your choir director is giving you, a background music today. And man, we hadn't heard him in a little while, so we have to have him back on the show.
Amen.
Okay, so give us what is the lesson today, sir?
The lesson today is about one Lord, which is the first commandment, and then it's the great commandment, and the first commandment. And to know about them, you have to be born again. You have to believe the gospel, the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You believe that? You pass from death into life before you sleep and after you sleep. And that's your way to heaven. Now, the first commandment is in Mark, which is talking about one Lord. The 12th chapter, verse 28 to 30.
Okay.
It said, and one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. That's why you have to surrender all. All to Jesus I surrender, all to him I daily give. That's one of those songs, hymn about I surrender all.
That's one of those great gospel songs. Okay, and it was sort of the test of time. I know, and me growing up, okay, at Jackson Street Baptist Church in Victor, Mississippi, that was one of the songs that I heard or we saw at least once a month, if not sometimes twice a month.
An hour. Here's another one in Deuteronomy. This is talking about the great commandment in Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, verse 4 and 5. It says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. See, God brings things to pass. He'll say it here in one place, and then he'll say it in another place to let you know he spoke it here and he brought it to pass here.
Yes.
So that's how one Lord, the great commandment is all connected together. And it comes through you believing the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That you pass from death unto life before you sleep and after you sleep. Now, that's it. Because I know you're going with time. So that's it. And all the people have to do is continue to believe this wonderful gospel and get saved before it's ever too late. In Jesus' most precious name, amen.
But we have, this we promised, I guess, our audience this month, I should say, that we'll be doing some special programs, and we'll be doing that. And at 1:30 today, we will be joined by our guests. It's a treat from you to us, to you around the world, as we kind of expand our teachers, our listeners, audience around the world. But on that note, my name is Aaron Folks. That's Reverend Alan Lyles. And that's Scott Owen. And on that note, Scott takes out of here.
Amen.
Well, welcome to Lunch with the Light Chamber Convention on this beautiful Saturday afternoon here in St. Louis. As a matter of fact, weather has gotten into fall. We are now in the chilly, chilly day. But in fact, one of the coldest days this April that we have here in St. Louis. And again, it is, I guess we say Indian summer has ended. We never know in St. Louis. But anyway, as you approach October, the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in Atlanta, Georgia, trying to say that COVID-19 hospitalizations are up 8.7% and deaths are up 4.5% in the most recent reported in the weeks. The numbers are quite low. These are compared to the numbers from September, when roughly 18,000 Americans were hospitalized by the virus, COVID-19 virus, in the first week of September. So again, things are kind of leveled off a little bit. We thank God for that. We also ask you to continue, please. Right now, if you have gotten your COVID-19 shot and your flu shot at the same time, please do that. And also, we also can ask you to please wash your hands. I know you hear us in that time and time again, but that's one of the things that will keep the COVID-19 numbers down. And also wear a face mask. And as I go out and I travel around the single community, I'm very encouraged by the fact that I see young people, old people, in-between people, everybody wearing face masks. Because the COVID-19 has not left us, and we're going through this season. People are coughing, so you got to protect not only yourself from the COVID-19, but also you protect your household. But you don't want to take nothing home to your family. Also, because right now, you get in the house and you say, how did you get here? Well, you may come in coughing. If you have any doubts that you may have it, you can get COVID kits all over the neighborhood, all over the community right now. And so and if you need them, please test them. And if you're concerned, please go to your local doctor, to your doctor, go to your urgent cares, or to your clinic and get tested, to the hospital, get tested. Because again, you don't want to let this get too far away from you, hitting you, because this is nothing to play with. And I guess I'm happy to say again, please do what you're doing. Keep these numbers low. And oh, by the way, hospitals and all those numbers that you saw in the past couple of years, okay, these numbers been reported, but they're not doing that now. So that's why we do what we can do here to spread the word. And also, I'm happy to say in Canada, our neighbors to the north, they have elected their first black president of the House of Commons, and that's a gentleman by the name of Greg Fowlkes. And in their history, like we are here, they're breaking records for black participation, and also, as we, looking at, but this is a peaceful transition there, and we wish them much luck in his family in Canada. And also, this week in the United States, we still cannot, not talk about what we all saw this past week in our own House of Representatives, where Speaker Kevin McCarthy was removed for the first time in our history as a speaker removed, and I said removed. He was on Tuesday. He was on Tuesday by the vote of 216 to 210. The vote was called by a contingency of right conservatives after Matt Yates of Florida orchestrated a rare vote on the obscure motion to invade and put their heads swiftly into a dynamic afternoon roll call. And it was dynamic because people could not believe what they were seeing, and this has created a whole lot of chaos. But in the meantime, this was going on. Steelers failed as the presiding officer gavelled the vote closed, saying that the office of the speaker is hereby vacated. And moments after this took place, cooler heads did prevail. State Representative Patrick McHenry of North Carolina Republican took the gavel, and according to the House rule, it was named Speaker Pro Tem. And after her, he's the next in line in the speakership there, to take over in case something took place. And he's to serve in that office until a new speaker is named. And matter of fact, his only duties is to call back the House to order when they're ready to, the Republicans think they have a conference together and think they have a speaker. But one of the first things McHenry's first act in his temporary position was to oust Speaker entrepreneurs, Nancy Pelosi from her honorary office at the Capitol, where she was, while this took place while she was away in Florida, pay tribute to the late dancer, Dianne Feinstein, who passed away, Senator Feinstein passed away last week. And while the representatives, were in recess until Tuesday, when they would meet to elect McCarthy's replacement. So again, this would be a very, very, very contentious time in our Congress. As we all know, this was really something that really I call stupid. This violated the dispute with former Speaker McCarthy sided with the Democrats to avoid a shutdown of the government last week. And if you had to make that decision, they have the votes in the Republican caucus there to get a majority to vote. And so to avoid shutting down all things that operate by the federal government, we've been in great, great, great trouble. And so right now, he's going to finish his term as a representative from Florida. He also will be run for election next year. Now, also, this is real time in what I'm saying to you today. Presently, right now, in case you're not aware, is an uprising in the Middle East where Yuzu and Abbas, well, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu, they are at war. They are at war. And that means that all the people have been killed, the house has been taken, missiles have been flying, and now we're seeing the damage from that. And this is kind of really important, but I'm going to say to you. President in the United States Senate, the senators, Republican senators have been held up. Your appointment to the Israeli ambassador. And really, ambassador is the one that would be relied on to be speaking to the real Israeli people in his kind of heaven for in Israel as an ambassador to help see how we can work together to solve this problem that we got seeing taking place right now. So you starting to turn your TVs on, or you starting to watch TV, you're gonna see that you got fires, and this is not rumors of war. This is war in the Middle East right now for Israel and the Gaza Strip people. And this is not good. This is not at all good. So right now, we ask for prayers up. We say, please pray. And right now, as we all know, anytime a country invades Israel, the United States comes to their aid. And so this is during the United States until this disruption that's going on. And also, we're seeing some of the weapons that we supplied Israel. One of them is a dome that will be able to protect Israel. That's from missiles coming in. So you're going to see all the technology coming there. And so right now, we ask you to get prayers up, listen down. And one of the things this morning, for some reason, I want to say morning. Reverend Lyles want to say morning, but it's afternoon. It's afternoon, but it's morning in Israel. We can say that much. And so as daybreak comes about, this morning, I'm going in this afternoon, the prayer and your lesson both reference Israel in Mark, and also in Deuteronomy, right here, about how important our relationships around the world and how much they are a part of everything that goes on in biblical times and also in present times. So again, we just ask that you please be mindful and keep using your prayers, and also that keep that cooler heads will survive, and hopefully not only we've been affected a handicap, like the description. We talk about this every week also in the Senate again, confirmation for over 300 of our top military officers are being held up. Our senator from Alabama, Senator Tuberville, is refusing to get one senator, by the way, can hold up all the things that's going on. And so right now, Senator Tuberville is blocking any confirmations of any of the top persons of the generals. And thank God that we recently got our chief of staff and paid at the Pentagon past this past couple of weeks here. But right now, this chaos that we have in our country of not letting our people do what they're supposed to do, this is not good, people. This is not good. So again, you will be hearing more about this as the day go on, and not just as the week goes on. You're going to hear more about this. And also, you continue to hear about former President Donald Trump, doing stuff that makes no sense that we find out. And most recently, we found out that he's been sharing some more documents. But these documents, again, were classified documents. And in doing this, we found out that the document he showed us sharing with some people, billionaires now, Australian billionaires, and all this located at this club in Marlowe, Florida, and it was a private membership club there, where he was showing documents to these billionaires. And guess what? We already know what happens next. They share them with somebody else and show somebody else. And what this does, this put us at a disadvantage or at risk for answer to this. So this is very important that the former president, kind of let cooler heads prevail here. We find ourselves with over 90-something indictments that's been going against him in the last 18 months, so to speak. And that includes what was revealed by us by the January 6, raids. I call it, attack on our nation capital. And during that time, to this point, over 1,100 people have been charged in connection with the January 6 riot. 110 have been found guilty at trial, and about 366 have pleaded guilty to federal charges. Former President Donald Trump is also that 100 number, and also so we ask for prayer that our people can come together, and that also that the flamethrowers, all the hate that you find up all over our country, where you find it every day, Rev, that somebody, mass shootings are taking place all over the country. And at this point, we sit here paralyzed right now, because right now we're less than 40 days out now from the another budget shutdown, where everything in the country shuts down. And here we find ourselves in war. We're not in war, I'm thinking that. With the Middle East, all type of confusion going on over there. And this is why I started reading about everybody in that area right now is on edge. And this is a time that we all need to be at all times on guard and ready to be able to move forward in a timely manner. And so, and I said a timely manner, one of the things that took place this past Tuesday that's very, very noticeable, that the that the United States Senate got a new member, Ms. Laposa. Well, I'll make sure I spell that, Laphoonza Butler. Ms. Butler became the third black female to serve in the United States House of Representatives. The first two were Mildred Brown from Illinois. Then we had Senator, now Vice President Kamala Harris, was number two, who is now our Vice President. And also Ms. Butler was sworn in to replace the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. And her term represents the state of California. Will go on until the next election. And also, she's a former Labour leader, and so she should hit the ground running. That's also a very good thing. And also, this week, Vice President Kamala Harris is in the St. Louis community with first husband, Doug Imhoff, and they're here now for a Democratic National Committee meeting. And she's joined by Donna Brazil, Nathan Chair, and also here in St. Louis, Secretary Attorney Gore, retired Missouri Supreme Justice George Draper, who retired after 12 years on the Supreme Court, House of Missouri. He would be the chief training officer in a new position. And also, federal officials told 16 states that they have been underfunding their historical black colleges and universities now to the tune of $12 billion. The largest of those being Tennessee State University had the biggest loss over $2.1 million, and in Tennessee, attorney Ben Crump will be representing their effort to receive their dollars. And also, this is a very important thing to be aware of. And also, this month, the Supreme Court demanded that the state of Alabama redraw their maps, congressional maps, because guess what? This is ongoing thing. Refuse to reflect the 30% black population in Alabama. The state had refused the previous order, so we're going to see how this works out. And more than 75,000 workers have marked out this week in a one-week strike against Kaiser permitting in California, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. This is the largest walkout by healthcare workers in the country. And also the UAW strike is the 4th weekend, but will not be expanded the strike, as the unions have seen key steps taking place. And also in California, the actual strike, the negotiation continues next week. But as this week, you saw the late night show returning this week. And also in St. Louis County and St. Louis City, carjacking continues to increase. And this is not only in the St. Louis area, but this is pretty much around the world we have this problem, and so we ask for prayers for all of our leaders and stuff, okay, but right now we ask a special prayer for Israel and all of our, our people that's, being harmed away, and also we ask for our armed forces people to be on key. And also, we continue to see that as we approach this week, like never before, we are seeing chaos in the weather. We are seeing chaos. You know, there's a book, Scott, we recall that our guest, Mr. Bill Kovacs, wrote, I should say, that talked about chaos in government, and he will be our guest coming up very, very soon. But starting this month, this week, for the first time, you know, we're trying to do something different in our programming, and we're trying to give respect to our black listeners and members around the world that attended the conference we had in Atlanta, Georgia, most recently, where we had people from all of Africa, South America, and also in the parts of the Middle East where we had people of color, including India, was in our conference. And so what we're trying to do is kind of give some respect to them and talking about on our show, Lunch and Intellectual Commerce, how we work together and can work together in different avenues, and we can come together as a team and a family to be able to, get along and show that we are getting along. And like I said, this week we got a very special program for you. We started very, very shortly. And this program this week is so special in that very shortly, we're going to be joining Skype very shortly, so the call comes through. And when we do that, we'll be joined by three of our members. First of all, the first meeting, I'm so happy to say thank you to is Mr. Frederick Anderson. He's our international coordinator for the National Human Commerce. And during our conference in Atlanta, he did an excellent job. They had a lot of great nations, synagogue. I can go down the list, but all was in attendance there. And in Kenya, several countries that we are there, and also from South America. And so we had a lot of workshops about how we can work with them. We also had a lot of workshops with our federal government there for the first time in our workshop. And also, I just want to give thank you for going to Mr. Checkerboard III and also Bishop, not Bishop.
I heard your guests already.
Okay, well, so on that note, Scott, let's bring them in right now. Okay, Mr. Anderson, how you doing, sir?
Waiting for others to join now. Stand by.
Okay, this is the all-time first round show here. I'm using new technology by using Skype, and we are excited to present this will be, the first of many shows we'll be doing this, with our African friends around the diaspora and around the world, I should say. And very shortly, so the connection has been made here. And as soon as this guy get to call and do the thing he do it with the magistrate, with our technology.
Okay. That should be.
So Scott, on that note, I'll shut up and let you let me know when I'm going to speak again.
All right. Let's see here. Stand by. Waiting on people to join us. Do you want to go to a small break while we're doing this?
No, let's do this, Scott. We can take a small break.
All right.
The lunch with the Zuma Shaman Commerce, beautiful city up in North. Live U.S. Scott, take it out here.
Okay. All right, in 5, hold on. In 4, 3, 2.
Hi, and my name is Dr. Malcolm Beach, and this is Eagle News Forum. And I'm your host for today's show. And today we've got some very interesting guests. We've got Dr. Peter Odero. We've got Frederick Anderson. And of course, we've got Ira Fowlkes, who will be joining us shortly. Okay, so how are you doing today, gentlemen?
Doing fine, Dr. Beach. How are you doing today?
Okay, doing just great. Let me just start off with Dr. Odero. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of media operation do you have?
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm Beach, for inviting me onto your platform. I appreciate you all. I'm just outside Nairobi, Kenya, the capital city of Kenya. I've been involved in media and communications in radio really for quite a while. I had my first radio show in 1995. It was called the Coca-Cola Radio Show. So my thrust now is I have another radio show. It's called Good Morning Africa. We broadcast out of San Diego in California, and we reach possibly about I think 15,000 plus people who are signed onto our app, our platform, and I broadcast once a week. But then I'm involved in several other activities in music production, as well as presenting and producing things for various other media outlets around the globe. So that's generally what I do. A lot of people know me as a songwriter, a singer and songwriter as well. So I wear many hats. I wear many hats, which I guess is a segue for what our discussion today might evolve into. How do we survive in the quick evolving world that is present day media?
Yeah, well, I guess that's why they call it the creative industry. You know, we definitely have to be creative. And Frederick Anderson, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you want to add to the conversation.
Well, Dr. Beach, again, thank you for having me back on your show. I definitely appreciate it. For those who might not know, I'm the president of a consulting firm that advises and consults with businesses who are around the world who are looking to do business internationally. And one of the reasons that I was looking to kind of have this conversation, be a part of this conversation, because when you start talking about the African diaspora doing business internationally, I think one of the tipping points is basically understanding communications media. And that's where I was happy to kind of be a part of this conversation, and that you wanted to kind of engage in this area, because I think it's very vital for us to start having these meaningful discussions on how media impacts business opportunities and what are the business opportunities in the media space. So I'm looking forward to furthering the conversation.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, the media is very, very important because it deals with image, and the image almost controls what we think about each other. When we look at somebody and kind of see, are they different, are they the same, or how close are we together? And when you talk about the diaspora in Africa, that's a big gap that many of us face, especially those of us that have never been to Africa. You know, you have all kinds of images in mind as to what Africa is really like and what Africans' daily life in Africa is really like. And of course, many of us believe, those of us that have traveled to Africa, you realize that it's a total different conversation with some members of the diaspora, and in terms of what they think is going on in Africa and what really is going on. So when we talk about the media, what kind of challenges have you seen, Peter, in terms of this image thing? What is it that is it any different between Nairobi and California? I can't hear you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. No.
As you know, because you've traveled, I see you wearing a Kenyan cap with your Kenyan colors and everything's going on right there.
This is in your heart, man. I want to let you know I'm in tune.
fantastic. So Kenya is very much like in the sub-Saharan. It's one of the big four, the big four African nations. You have South Africa, you have Nigeria, you have Egypt, and you have Kenya as the four pillars of industry and commerce on the continent. Kenya is roughly 50 million people, which is maybe a quarter of the population of Nigeria. And so you have some interesting opposites or things going on there. And of course, sub-Saharan Africa, doing business in sub-Saharan Africa, which is like Nigeria and Kenya, is very different from doing business in South Africa and Egypt. So you have extremely developed economies in some places and some places no. So the capital city of Kenya, Nairobi, where I grew up and have been before I started my many travels to the U.S. I've been coming back and forth to the U.S. for over 20 years now for various intents and purposes. In fact, I just got back from the U.S. in the end of July, and it's what I've seen in terms of the differences is sometimes stark. Nairobi is a very, in fact, for all the intents and purposes, is a very westernized city. You can find many major brands, many major stores, except Starbucks in Nairobi. You still won't find a Starbucks in Nairobi. You will find a KFC, but you won't find a Starbucks. But there are various versions of these major brands. Very highly developed, very intense. In fact, I would say it's a mix of somewhere between Atlanta and New York. The vibe is almost New Yorkish, but when you really get to meet the people, they have a very Southern American sort of warmness to them. But if you get to the city, some of these guys are super intense with their business. And again, one more factoid that anybody dealing with Africa has to understand is that 73% of Africa's population is under 35 years of age. I'll say that again, 73% of Africa's population is under 35. The median age of Kenya, you have Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, you have a very low median age. Uganda is 17, Tanzania is 18, and Kenya is 19. The median age is 19. So you're more likely to meet a 19-year-old in Kenya than anybody else. But of course, they don't have the economic power. So this is just some of the factors that I think bring interesting twists. So there's a large population of the 50 million people in Kenya are under 35. So you, in terms of a market, it's a growing market, and you can see what the curve, if you draw any economic curve in terms of growth, you see that the trajectory for the next 25 years is incredible. So Africa is really your growth. It really is your growth continent. It really is the opportunity that many people may be sleeping on. So doing business here has its challenges because then even though you have a very advanced economy, you still have connectivity issues and things like that. Basic issues to do with poverty and finding ways to get your product to reach the market. So that's what I'd have to say as a basic introduction. Anybody trying to do that moving into the Africa space.
Okay, well, that was quite interesting. Let me ask our new guest to join us, Mr. Ira Fowlkes from the show Lunch with the Missouri Black Chamber of Commerce. Ira, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your program.
Well, I'm programming right now. Bring in guests like yourself from around the world to highlight the different challenges, well, some of the different advantages we have in our country, how we can work with different countries. And of course, I want to thank you for inviting us to be on your show also. This is indeed an honor, sir. And I came in a little bit late here, but I think the to take place. And also for Dr. Pete, I came in the very your introduction, sir. But I have one question here. What is, yes, sir. What is the main currency there? There's some dollar, American dollars.
Sorry,
So,
Ira.
I think I think I understood this question. Yes, I can get two ways. What is the currency in Kenya? So the Kenyan shilling. Kenyan shilling is the currency of exchange, but big business is often always done in US dollars because the US dollar, for the most part, is the international currency for trade. And so that's to basically answer your question.
And gentlemen, may I also interject in some of the conversation, especially when Dr. Darrow was talking about the marketplace, and he mentioned the 50 million in Kenya, and he mentioned roughly 200 million in Nigeria. But the continent of Africa has over 1.2 billion people. So take the United States number and multiply it by 4 approximately, that's the size. I just want to emphasize that. So when he talks about 72% of the African marketplace is under 35, that's on that $1.2 billion marketplace. And I think that's important because as we look to reach into that marketplace and looking at the demographics from a business standpoint, we need to know what are the demographics that we're trying to reach and understanding those impacts. So I just want to kind of share that information. So I thought it was important.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, and it's growing. I mean, in other words, those numbers are set to double in another 20, 30 years. And those of us that are involved with the diaspora that want to do business, in Africa, now's the time. Now's the time to get started and to work with that. And the other thing that you wanted to talk about, I think, Frederick, was the role of media in that transition, in that growth. How can the creative arts impact that relationship between the diaspora and Africa?
Well, basically, one of the first things to that point, the role of media is the messaging. Basically, you touched on previously, is the imagery that we all kind of perceive of different areas in which we are thinking about. So when we think about the continent of Africa, people might still have the imagery of undeveloped countries, and as Dr. Darrow basically talked about, there are some westernized developed communities that are significant, and that's why my travel, I recognize that imagery is very important. Another component is basically the messaging. Media has to basically be able to kind of let people know that there's business opportunities that are available, that Africa is open for business, that the African diaspora is open for business, and that people in the continent and the different countries are looking to do business with each other. And that's where I think, again, media plays a role. Lastly, for maybe this conversation, the other component is that media is a major marketplace. When we talk about media, we're talking about various components of communication, and I'm sure Dr. Darrow might want to elaborate on that for you gentlemen as far as the communication side, but then also there is the business industry behind it. Everything from the production side, the promotion side, and basically evolving the educational component of it, because there's a true intentionality to kind of help to develop the media side. And as an example, when you think about music, Afro beats now are around the world. Rap is celebrating its 50 years, but Afro beats now, I think, is on the rise. And so, Dr. Darrow, I'll just tee that up for you to have a conversation on that area if you like.
Let me see if I can strike that into a good spot. Get a hole in one while I'm at it. You're absolutely right, Frederick. Thank you for your input. The penetration of mobile telephony right now in countries like Kenya, you have things like 51%, I think it is, large. So you have a lot of that translating into smartphones. But then you have countries like Niger and Chad, which have a much lower, people who have 10%, 6% penetration. So there's still, the majority of Africans, I think it's about 46%, over 60% of Africans, basically the main communication that people find their information is via radio. So radio is still an extremely important medium to receive news and communication. So whereas imaging, the image concerning who we are as Africans is clear to us, who Africa is to the rest of the world is not controlled by Africans. So that is a thing that has to change. We have to begin to find ways to gain a growing way in which we can tell our own stories. We have businesses and people who have built incredible businesses, incredible machines, incredible things that they're doing here and now on the continent that the world doesn't know about, because Africa, they say, contributes less than 10% of the global GDP. Yet we are the supplier of way close to maybe 60, 70% of raw materials to the globe. I think it's important for us then to then say, what is our messaging? And you're finding people like young entrepreneurs like Suji Moto in Nigeria, Julian Kula, who I know personally here, Quayle from South Africa. These are people who are young Africans who have started moving and are already continental shakers and are doing business on a global scale. And so it is important to begin to tell these success stories, to begin to pass these messages on to the rest of the world, so that the world can see that there's not just opportunities to do business, but that you can actually succeed. And I think this is very clear. Let me throw something into the mix right there. And where the US, for example, and Europe is giving little to Africa, where input is concerned with trade, the Chinese are pouring in over 100 times what the US is inputting right now. So I think this is an important messaging where how we are seen. So it's important for us to then be able to harness whatever vehicles of communication are to put a clear picture. Part of the reason that I'm out there, and very importantly when I travel to the US, is say this clearly, is it's important for us to understand who Africans are, why they're the way they are, and then also open up to the opportunities that Africa offers. So definitely the inroads, one of the inroads is, as I've said, is radio. Radio is still big, but there's still opportunities for incredible penetration. If some countries have only mobile telephony of about 10%, you still have opportunities for growth. So there's people right now who are jumping into those countries who are not really Africans, but partnering with people who are in Africa to build the kind of networks that would make communication much easier.
Okay, so that means there's a future for communications in developing Africa economically as well as entertainment-wise. I mean, a lot of times people think of media only as entertainment, but you're saying there's an economic development role to be played also.
Correct.
With communications. So Ira, did you have any comments that you wanted to make on that?
Well, yes, I have several comments on that, because about three that come on top of my head. One thing that you mentioned there, that investment your country is kind of big from China compared to what the United States is doing. That's up my mind right away. And also mentioned that early on in your conversation about the age group, which is a very, very young age group. In Africa that has to continue. And then the third part would be that we can help the Muslim secular commerce and the national secular commerce, can be a part of that engine that's driving Africa in the world. Because right now you see though everything flows through Kenya. If I'm right. Am I right about that, Doctor?
Yeah. Well, I think that moving forward, give us some future direction, Frederick. What's going to happen in the future? Foretell the future for us with communications.
Well, I mean, I can only say that I know based on the interest that is being focused on the creative economy and media being part of that, and just recognizing that the world is becoming a smaller place, that there are going to be more opportunities in the creative economy space, especially when it comes to media. Because if you just kind of look at the progression just for the past 10 years, you may be aware the blockbuster movie that Denzel Washington starred in back in 2012 called The Safe House basically was filmed in Cape Town, South Africa, and it showed a very robust community of businesses, stadiums, banking, airports, and what have you. So it gives you that image. And now fast forward to 2022, The Woman King also filmed in Africa, a significant portion of that. It's helping to boost the economy. So as a result of that, there are a lot of other industries that are saying, how can we participate and basically capture the entertainment market? And entertainment market basically is the backbone of a lot of other industries that need servicing. So I can only tell people who are in the creative space that it's a growing opportunity, and you should look to the diaspora and African marketplace and figure out how you can participate in it from the service industry, from the insurance side to the actual production side, as far as providing actual products and goods. And so that's where I see it going as far as the future.
But how can we get a mix? I'm trying to get the diaspora in on the deal too. It's not just you want to develop Africa, but how do we develop the diaspora, and what role can the diaspora play in bringing this image to the diaspora outside of Africa? What role can the diaspora play?
I think sorry, Frederick, do you want to go first?
No, Dr. Darrow, I was going to say that I think it's a question that's
okay. For you. So there's already a model for this that's actually working. The diaspora, that is the Africans who are based outside of Africa, outstrip the US and Europe put all together 5 times over in terms of what they send back in remittances. So it's maybe 5 or 5 times over what the US and Europe all put together do in terms of aid, in comparison to aid. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for opportunities to really expand. And I think for me, it comes in 3 ways: to create empowerment for people in the diaspora by creating the platforms that they can plug into. The second one also begins with E, is educating those who are both in the diaspora and here to be able to see let's give them the information that says we can build these bridges. And maybe the third thing is encouraging people through inspiration by showing people these success stories. And maybe I'll say in 3 ways, so that I was in a conversation. We began these conversations with interesting people. I met with the president of the Stellar Awards in July. I was in Las Vegas for the Stellar Awards, and the president of Mr. Jackson, we started a conversation as how can they move their product and come, because they see Mr. Jackson is one of the people who are what I call early adopters, who can see the opportunity in Africa. And so one of the things that I feel is the direction that we can begin to go is setting up units that can create content for the creative economy. Because the music business doesn't run how it did 30, 40 years ago. Before you'd run to a store and buy these records, but now everybody's either consuming it online or some other way. So selling actual units may be difficult, but the content is still being created. We need to be the ones in the space where we can say we have studios, whether it's film studios, whether it's music studios. We need to be the ones saying, hey, why don't we put up units in those key cities like Lagos, like Johannesburg, like Nairobi? Why don't we put up and partner with the locals to build the kind of studios that would produce world-class content for that creative economy. So I feel partnerships like that would be wonderful. Secondly, diving into and partnering with people who are into radio and broadcasting, whether it's buying up radio stations or investing in already existing radio stations. I have friends in West Africa and Southern Africa and here who have built incredible networks with the radio stations that they have in Eastern Africa, in Southern Africa, and in West Africa, which are hubs. And those hubs have produced some very interesting radio stations that then are commercial units. So radio and broadcasting is still going to be big, plugging into things like that. And then finally, finding ways in which we can plug into the telephony in the spaces where it hasn't grown. There's so much opportunity still for people who come into the market with creative ideas, where we can bring our mobile phones now and say, I want to partner. You can get people who are in the diaspora who come together, band together and say, we want to become a player in this arena and begin to buy into those opportunities that have now presented themselves in some of these countries. Just a little word of maybe with a little bit of caution as well. You know, you had people in the 17 and 1800s moving to the West in the United States, coming to pioneer. In a way, that's exactly what's happening in Africa. And as you're pioneering, please understand, in the same way that you had buccaneers, you had bandits, you had stagecoach robbers. These are realities that happen in emerging markets. Wherever the emerging markets, the risk is high, the returns are high. But I think the idea is to then say, who can I trust in these emerging economies? Who can we partner with to then say, hey, I think these are safe hands to work with. There's people who have incredible experience, have demonstrated some measure of success on the continent and credibility. So these are some of the things that we need to be looking for, so that we're not just waving this, hey, I'm going to Africa flag and then get burnt, but really begin to begin to partner with people in the creative economy, who've had some measure of credibility and success. And I suppose that's my input here, to say, having somebody on the continent to point to say, hey, I've worked with so-and-so in West Africa for the last 15, 20 years. I've worked with so-and-so in South Africa for so-and-so. I've worked with so-and-so in the East African community for a while. These are the kind of relationships that we need to start with.
Mm-hmm. And if I may just add to that, and that's why, you know, I always say that it's important to kind of build relationships. And that's why in the case of being belonging to some of the organizations like the National Black Chamber of Commerce, National Business League, because we forge relationships, as Dr. Adera was talking about. We have trade missions to create those relationships, because this past December 14th, during the African Leadership Summit that the president had, we had a gathering, a reception that was talking about the creative economy, and we brought in some folks from Lagos, Nigeria, who were creating a creative academy, partnering with universities here in the U.S. and universities in Africa, Nigeria specifically, to build an academy to help educate basically individuals both here in the U.S. and also in Nigeria on how they can partner together in the creative economy. So I definitely agree with you, Dr. Adera, that partnering is important and understanding who you're getting involved with. And as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Beach, how can it grow? Well, creative academies being built in country here in the U.S. as well as in other parts of Africa can help to kind of spur the growth in this area.
Well, let me ask you this. This is a tough business question. In other words, all of this takes money, okay? Mm-hmm. And the money comes from business, and primarily comes from business. So we're talking about market demand for the products. Do you think is a stronger demand in diaspora, or is it a stronger demand in Africa? Or just how do we deal with this market demand? Because that's where we're going to have to find the money to pay for all these wonderful ideas.
And that's where, if you may interject, there are actual intentional programs to help fund creative economy-based projects. And they realize that the markets that we're looking to kind of be in, that there's opportunity on the business side. For example, the cost of producing a movie in Africa, I read a statistic, is roughly 65% of what it costs to do it in the US. So that mindset is saying, okay, fine. So businesses understand, hey, you can save money to produce products in other countries. And then, as Dr. Darrow mentioned, the marketplace, the overall market that you're looking to reach is growing, and it's growing exponentially in the continent of Africa. And then as the growth is happening in Africa, the diasporans, those who are coming from Africa to the US to get educated, to basically run businesses and to invest in businesses, it's basically happening in both sides of the equation. So there's a growing market and there's a cost saving to operate that will help fuel the financing of business opportunities, especially for those people who are taking on what I call the conservative risk, meaning the fact they're doing the business already here, or they're doing business in Africa and they're looking to partner together. And that's the key element. So that's my contribution to that question.
Mm-hmm. Peter, you were about to say something about market demand?
Well,
absolutely. Sorry.
You go ahead, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Here's what I'd like to say. The Kenyan market is 50 million individuals. All we need to do, the reality is there's people who've made millions of dollars just sitting here selling basic products to Africans who are here. The East African region is about 100 million people now. So you can imagine a market of 100 million. What needs to happen is finding products and services that can then be sold to this emerging economy. Because it's growing, we're really talking about fast-moving consumer goods. We're talking about other, what I call low-hanging fruit that people can invest in. But that's a saturated market already, because you have the Unilevers who are here, you have all these big global players who are already here, who are not playing in the creative economy side. They're not playing in that space. So it gives an opportunity for somebody with the vision to then say, let's not look at, because this is one of the problems, is that, Africa Free Trade Agreement is heading towards this, creating one huge market so that the trade tariffs and barriers across Africa can easily be overcome. Because I believe that the future for Africa is intra-African trade, not necessarily exporting, which is definitely big, but intra-Africa trade. And when you begin to look at that, the consumption, for example, of Afrobeats as the music or creative products that's coming out of especially Nigeria, Ghana, Nigeria. Kenya is one of the highest consumers of these products. But because it's not an actual product that's being sold, then the gateways to access those products, the creative products, is what is being controlled. And people are paying premium price for access to those gateways. So it takes a little bit of ingenuity and the ability to see, if I can buy into gateways, if I can buy into portals, if I can become the supplier of these products, then you change the narrative. And that always, the person who buys gold and the person who mines gold, who's going to be the wealthier person? It's definitely the person who owns the mine. So if I have access to the mine, which is the creative economy, then we're in the perfect place right now to then say, hey, we've created Afro-America. We call it Afro-America Communications. And we're jumping into Africa. We're building film studios. We're partnering to build film studios and to build recording studios to create the products for this creative economy. We're buying into the radio stations and telephone companies. Those are the gateways. You have a mine and a gateway. People start to pay you to begin to then move into that space. And I believe that the advertisers then begin to look at the numbers. When they see the numbers that we begin to then produce, the advertisers jump on it, and they'll pay you what they're paying now in the millions of dollars to access what is already being produced. So I believe that it really just takes a little bit of visionary insight to be able to see this. I have a friend who I introduced Frederick to, who's called Jazzy Jordan, Dr. James Jordan, who's based in Atlanta, who set up something like that and has onboarded in the thousands of subscribers. That's growing daily. And this is something within the last year that was produced out of the information that I gave him. So I feel that there's an opportunity here to then say, let's take this a step forward. Let's build the platforms. Let's create the engines that then produce these musicians and artists and creative producers and directors, and then let's go there. Allow me to say, lastly, Nigeria and Ghana focused on two things. Ghana and Nigeria focused on creating the space, and the Ghanaian government especially was very deliberate about creating the space for development of film. And so very high quality films began to come out, locally produced film for the local market. And the same happened with Nigeria. So Nigeria became a self-sustaining, introverted market that eventually created so much product that what we're getting now is the overflow of what was already produced in Nigeria. Nigerians are exporting the musicians. I don't know how many Nigerian musicians have moved to Kenya because their market is saturated. So it's overflowing. And so and they're super skilled. These are some of the most incredible musicians that I've ever heard. One of my music producers, and we just did a product that's going to be launched in London this month. One of the songs that we produced for one of our English partners. And my music director is actually a Nigerian who lives in Nairobi now. So my thing is, there's opportunities. All we need to do is really just say, okay, what is the entry level? What's the low hanging fruit? Putting together a studio, a world class studio in these various cities is not unachievable. It's something that the people within this circle can actually put finances together to do. Putting together a world-class film studio is not something impossible to do with the right kind of partners and the right kind of networks that we already have access to in this circle, the Black Chamber of Commerce, and so on. Those are the people who we can then say, hey, let's go to Africa. We're putting a studio in Cape Town. We're putting a studio in Nairobi. And this will translate down the line into creating the engine that produces these products, and secondly, the gateways that we then become a gateway. Did I say Afro-American communications? whatever we end up calling it. I'm just saying that for the sake of this. So if you do end up setting something like that, you need to include me so that I can get my nice percentage.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, you're not only included, you'll probably be leading the effort, But Ira, did you want to say something? You had a comment on this?
Well, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, Doctor, I'm located here in St. Louis, which is the gateway, to the west.
Well, those are some excellent points on that. Now we've covered the market and the demand, but what are some of the obstacles? I mean, we always got some obstacles that are blocking us from achieving some of our objectives. They're slowing us down anyway. They're never going to stop us, okay? We're going to get there eventually. But what are some of the obstacles you think that we should look out for, plan for, as we go forward?
Well, one of the things that I think is always can be a challenge is making sure that you have the rights to your intellectual property. When you start talking into the media space, there are a lot of people that might not be savvy enough or understand what they need to do to protect their intellectual property. And that's where, when you do start doing international business, you want to make sure that you have your trademarks and your basically your patents in place to protect your intellectual property before you leave the country. And then when you go into other countries, find out what's the requirements to make sure, to the best of your ability, that you can protect your intellectual property. And then that kind of leads to being able to kind of then connect with the right partners, as we talked about before, and making sure you vet the other businesses or the relationships that you have, and recognizing that these are just some of what I call the preliminary issues that you want to make sure that you have in place, because once you start talking to people in other countries, you want to make sure what's your asset, what's your property, is something that you can take claim to. So that's the first step, and there are several more that I don't think we have time to go into today, but we'll gladly, have some information to you, Dr. Beach, about the other headwinds. But some of you mentioned financing, right? And just making sure you address the right financing package, doing the market research, making sure you understand what your market needs, and understanding how to market to your market. So that's my approach. And I'll leave some time for Dr. Darrow to kind of give some thoughts.
Yeah, we talked about, you're absolutely right about the intellectual property, because if you notice recently, a lot of people have talked about the value of Prince and his music, Michael Jackson and his music. A lot of that, that's big wealth, big time money. And you're right, as you get into the industry, you need to know how to do that. So go ahead, Dr. Pete, you going to tell us something?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. There's two things I immediately want to say: that you're dealing with 1.2 billion people with hundreds of languages, hundreds of different languages. So that's one of the big things you have to find. The former British colonies mainly speak English. The former French colonies mainly speak French. The former Spanish colonies, there's about 3 in Africa, speak Spanish. But then you also have hundreds of dialects that you're dealing with. So that's one of the things. Being able to find the right spaces to navigate through that. Currencies. And I think Dr. Fowlkes said something there. The trade between Nigeria and Kenya is done in US dollars because we don't have an African currency, an African common currency to trade in. There's been a huge talk about this. And of course, there's resistance to it because, if we stop trading in US dollars, guess what? No more American money needed in Africa. So the Francophone countries, part of the energy that's driving the coups in the 7 coups in the former French colonies, 9 in the 9 countries, 7 countries that we've had in the last 3 years, has to do with throwing off the shackles of the French franc. These economies are backed by the French franc, and part of the clamor right now is to throw off the shackles of being subject to foreign economies. So currencies is very important. Let me say a couple of things. One is to do with standards. Because of such a diverse market, the market is so diverse, finding the standards for various spaces. The standards that are, for example, in South Africa or in Kenya are very different from the standards in Chad or Niger, for example. So that's just one of the things we have to look out for, being able to set standards. And then maybe lastly, I'd say is turnaround times. Whereas a country like Kenya may have a faster turnaround time. Other countries like Congo may have a much slower turnaround time because of less developed infrastructure. Congo, I think, is in terms of GNP, is internationally one of the top 5 countries in GNP. But GDP, it's all the way at the back because of just lack of infrastructure. So I think it's important for us to then say, if we're going to come into Africa, these are some of the realities that we have to face. I can't overemphasize the metaphor that I like to give of what was that show? It was called Little House on the Prairie, where you had Charlie Ingalls bushwalking across the prairies and building his own log house. This is really where we are with many of the African spaces. It may not look like it, but that's really the thing. And so the challenges that were there at that time are different from but their challenge is all the same. So you're coming into frontier country. This is something we have to keep at the top of our mind. Africa is a frontier, and a frontier has its challenges built into it. And part of the beauty is being able to walk away and say, I helped create a path. This road wasn't here before I came. Allow me to say a little bit about my past. There was a time I made an incredible contribution to creating what we call now in Kenya the contemporary gospel music scene. If you ask anybody who knows anything about Kenya, ask them about my name, they will tell you that they actually began to call me the godfather of contemporary gospel music in Kenya. So before there was anything, I helped create an actual market, $1 million market that is actually now existent. And anybody in the market will tell you that those are my credentials. I'm proud to say. What I want to say is that this is there's multiple ways. This can my experience in this has helped me really understand Africa in a way that I feel is important for us. To understand Zimbabwe, to understand Uganda, to understand those markets and the places that I've actually been to then see what the connection is between the creative economy and actual markets where you have products being sold. Because the products need the creative economy. Nobody switches on the radio to listen to ads. They switch on the radio to listen to music. Right. And when you create the music, then the musicians need to get paid for the music that the advertisers interrupt. So this is and everybody knows that if you've been in that media space. That is something that's very well known. Again, thank you for your time. I know I've hogged a little bit in
no, you're giving us great information. Absolutely. Let me try to ask another question, since we're talking about obstacles, not that they have to be obstacles. What about the government? Does the government have a role in developing this industry?
Well, I mean, definitely, and I would say every industry, the government plays a role, and as far as they can provide incentives to get the markets developed, that's what I think they try to play, and that we should anticipate them to play. And sometimes when you're developing in new market spaces, they might not know what are the best practices to be deployed. And that's where I think it's incumbent upon when we do that exchange of information that we might be able to share with them, especially when we're talking about media, what are some of the incentives that they can offer to the media space, as far as providing reduced tariffs, providing more expediency to kind of dealing with the intellectual property rights, and just kind of giving some guidance on some of the standards that are needed from one market for another company to come into the marketplace. So there's got to be a role for them, and they're actually trying to play that role, and but at the same time, it's got to be a balance, because we don't want the government to kind of be the director of the commerce that needs to get done. We want business to direct that commerce. So that's my input to that very, very specific.
Yeah.
Okay. I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. The government creates the enabling environment and provides the licensing so that we can protect the interests of whoever's investing. So I think that's my input. And like to Frederick's point, certainly there's the government is interested in seeing commerce happen. Governments are interested in seeing that happen all over Africa. But sometimes they're just clueless as to what's happening. Very few people right now have a robust digital regime for dealing with intellectual property where the digital space is concerned, because this is an emerging it's an emerging economy. Even though we're making millions, how do you police it? How do you manage it? How do you deal with the exponential growth? What laws are there for the players that are involved? A recent statistic I got was that Kenya was number one in terms of TikTok penetration in Africa, but there's to the point where the members of parliament were beginning to debate the whole question of TikTok. Well, where do you even begin? Because many of these members of parliament, when they were whatever they studied is obsolete with regard to what intellectual property or technological advancement is concerned. So all they know is that there's something called TikTok, but they are at a loss as to how to deal with this. And of course, we had a repeat of this an exact replica of this in the US. And so what do? When we don't understand something, we ban it. So I think it's important for us to have people who are clear in the understanding of where. That's why I call it visionary leader. What I'm doing now is finding visionary leaders who can lead the charge in being able to say, I have somebody who is clear on where the technological advancement, where the digital space is concerned, is going. These are people who can now bring very clear structures and ideas to create the kind of space that will not just be profitable, but also beneficial to the consumers.
Yeah, I mean, in Kenya, I think they've even got a cabinet secretary on the cabinet level that's dealing with the creative industry. So it's
absolutely
coming along. Yeah, it's really coming
along. Some of the, it is.
So, Ira, did you have a comment on the government relations?
Well, yeah. Well, really, okay. That is always interesting to be the government. That's one of the things I know. When people from our country come into Kenya, that's one of the barriers I've heard about for years, that knowing who to talk to, the fact who can help them and not be a hindrance to them. I think that's one of the things that I'm thinking about talking to the general here. Very impressed when you went to the General Award. One of the people that we work very closely with, Congress, is Bishop Wooten, okay, who is married to one of the pastors. I mean, our bishop, I said, the Italian bishop, one of the Clark family, and that who I'm talking about. But I think to collaborate with you in a whole lot of ways. We have changes, I would say, that we can work through and work with to move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one last thing. We've only got a few minutes left, but something very interesting is happening in America. Two of our famous music stars, Taylor Swift and Beyonce, have converted their concerts into films. So it's almost like the money just keeps on rolling. And they're having sellout crowds in the live concerts, and now they're talking about having sellout crowds with film. So what does that mean for an artist in terms of what they can look forward to with their talents and their creativity? Anybody?
Well, I think it opens up a true vision into what I call the overall entertainment business. And I'm going to take an angle not just from the artist angle, but but basically the conversation really, that question stimulates the conversation on the economic impact that they have on the areas in which they perform. Because basically when they go into a concert, think about the engineers that have to be hired from a sound perspective for setting up the stages. Think about the people that are going to come into their concert. So I think that's the first thing. And the reason I take that angle, because they also do international concerts. And I read a report where a number of people, because the ticket prices in the U.S. was exorbitant and at Beyonce's concerts, and therefore they said, let me go to other countries to visit them. So I think strategically, we as a diasporan, from an entertainment standpoint, have to start saying, if I'm a major diasporan performer, let me bring my talent to the countries, because I'm not only going to help what I call the direct media entertainment industry, but the ripple effects are going to happen from hotels, restaurants, clothing. There's so many other impacts in addition to creating an added space for the artists to kind of merchandise their platform. So I think it's a positive, but we have to be more strategic in making it happen. Now that it's been exposed, that guess what? These entertainers create economic waves, and that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. And it's almost like things are about to get balanced out. In other words, you don't have to be a billionaire investor to get into the billionaire business. Everybody in the community, if you got some talent, and if you can help that talent grow, you have an opportunity to be involved in this creative industry.
Well, Dr. Beach, let me say something here, okay? Being a former producer myself in the entertainment business, what Frederick mentioned there is very important, that the people in the background that actually put things together, and even the studios there, even the engineers there. And one of the things that we've been able to benefit from the Taylor Swift bubble there with dating right now. But just to see how Kelsey and jerseys that have been 400 more jerseys that have been sold right away just because of he been around her. So, I mean, it's like something that's like a high tide raise all boats. I mean, in the industry right now, it's visionary, and it's also a blessing to be in that area. Okay, when we find ourselves right now in the media, being able to be a part of that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I want to really thank you, gentlemen. Today was one of the most exciting, interesting conversations that we've had on Eagle News Forum. We're on the Clever Nod platform on YouTube. And if you wanted to contact us, I'm at beacheagle@gmail.com. My website, of course, is eaglenews.com. And how can we get in touch with you, Ira?
Well, one of the things that we can, our program today, okay, is being seen on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, live right now. Since we're doing this through Skype, using technology, and also we can be found on Spotify. This program today, by the way, gentlemen, will be rebroadcast on all those mediums Sunday tomorrow at 1 to 3 Eastern Standard Time, and also on Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. also. So those are some of the ways that we can be found at FergusonUSAHotTalkRadio.com. Okay. And also, I want to thank our general manager, Scott Owen, working with Dr. Beach today, and Frederick Anderson for making this a reality today. Truly, this is a blessing for you. The technology at its best right now. Well, then, Dr. Beach, I have to thank you so much, okay, being such a gracious host for us today. We thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. We all had a great time today, and we'll see you next time with Eagle News Forum. So long.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, y'all.
welcome back to Lunch with the White Chamber Congress on a beautiful Saturday afternoon around the world today. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mr. Frederick Anderson for doing a fantastic job of bringing together us around the world. Frederick, thank you so much for inviting, Dr. Beach and Dr. Odera, two beautiful gentlemen, who made our program take it to the next level. And right now, I'm happy to bring in Mr. Chuck DeBow, who is the CEO of the National Chamber of Commerce. And Chuck, you were not able to hear the conference, the call we had today with Dr. Anderson put together. But Fred, I'm sorry, Fred, kind of update a little bit so Chuck can come touch on what we just talked about in the last hour or so.
Well, Charles, we had a dynamic conversation that was based on the creative economy and the role that media plays in the conversation when it comes to the African diaspora, and we talked about some of the good things that the opportunities that are available in the creative economy, and we kind of focused in on the media space as it relates to radio and film. I had the opportunity of mentioning the reception that we had in December of 2022, where we focused on the creative economy, and we had some people that are in the industry, from the movie industry, from the fashion industry. And so it was a very dynamic conversation talking about the market opportunities and things of that nature.
And Chuck, also, we were blessed to have our guest, Dr. Odera from Kenya, and also Dr. Beach from Atlanta, Georgia, also. Who, by the way, today we simulcast our program with this YouTube program also today, so we kind of cross over some meetings there. And we also brought in Skype also for the first time in our program. That we took this in really global for the last hour or so.
Yes, and just a little bit of background, for you, Charles. Dr. Pete Adero, he has about 30 years in the music industry, and as a gospel artist, and also as a producer and production side. And he's based out of Kenya, but he also does work through an organization that's streams out of San Diego, California, and he has a radio show called Talk Africa Now. So it was a good conversation.
And also, Dr. Beach has a program also, which we were on today out of Atlanta. Tell them about him also, Frederick.
Yes, Dr. Beach has a media background, as you may know, Charles, that ranges in print and also radio. He has a digital platform that he's partnered with Cleveland TV that's also on YouTube as well.
Excellent. So, Chuck, let me say this before we go any further, okay? I want to thank you, okay, for being our global ambassador, okay, and laying the groundwork and most of the last hour or so, as we discuss what's going on around the world, Chuck. You and Dr. Harris and Reverend Johnny Ford, and the conference we had last month was really the foundation that we had here for us doing the show today, highlighting our friends around the world in the African community. So thank you for that, Chuck, bringing us all together for that.
Amen. Reverend Lyles.
Amen. Oh, hold on a second here. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I got excited here about what's going on here, and then being Dr.
Lyles studio.
And Chuck is already here right with us also.
And I also, while we're waiting to bring the other gentleman on phone, Charles, I also had the opportunity to discuss the importance of being connected to the National Black Chamber of Commerce because of our international reach and being able to set up relationships. That's one of the benefits, as well as being part of the National Business League. But I want to again thank you for all the work that you've done to kind of pave the way and making it possible for some of the relationships to be developed.
Thank you. Ira, where are we? What are we talking about?
He's trying to get the Reverend on the line there, Chuck.
Okay, all right. So, Fred, in the conversation, I can only imagine where Dr. Beach was guiding. guiding us because there's so much happening, and there's so much happening within what we're doing, and that's really consumed most of my time and focus the past week or so as we're preparing for the investment opportunity webinar on October 17th with matchmaking on the 18th for investment opportunities in Uganda, and then immediately.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so I was just bringing us up to speed on two immediate things that we're engaged on at a time where there's a lot happening around us. So the second thing was that we're taking a small delegation to Senegal on
Go ahead, Joe.
So with that stated, there's a lot going on, and if we're going to talk about international affairs or global affairs, then I almost feel like I want to put some rhyme or reason as to what we're doing and why, particularly as we're talking about Uganda. And anybody that is paying any kind of attention or seeing things kind of run across your news TV screen, that there is a movement that's going on in Francophone Africa. Francophones are the countries that were colonized by the French and are characterized that you can always tell it's Francophone because they speak French, even though a lot of them are speaking English now. And the younger generations are pushing back on these, I'll call them administrations, but these government administrations, central governments that have been run by like one person or one family for years and years and years. Uganda is one of those, even though they're not in Francophone. They're on the east side of the continent and part of the Eastern Economic Community of Africa. And the Francophones mostly are countries like Senegal, Ivory Coast. But in the news lately, there's been Gambia and Gabon and a few others where they're having coups. And essentially, the people are saying that they're no longer willing to accept the exploitive nature of the financial and economics environment that they're having to live in under the French dictating to them on how they go about doing what they're doing, and it's not in the best interest of the people. So we're of the mind that we think it's good for the people to continue to expand their economic relationships, and we're open to hearing who's saying what and how and forming our own opinion. I mean, you could even add another country there to that is near and dear to us all, and that would be Cuba. And Cuba has this embargo that the United States has imposed on them since 1959 that still continues to this day. And how and why and what does that have to do with us and why we can or can't do business over a political posture. So there'll be more dialogue coming out on that because the embargo itself has not gotten the results that I think it was intended to originally. And, you know, there's just a lot to it, and it's so much going on that we're hurting the people and not necessarily the political structure of the government. So those are just backdrop.
One of the things, Chuck, you have to add to that, okay, that in Cuba, you was the 90 miles from our country, that was sort of about the Castro family, and I think for the first time they got another person leading that, but he was raised by the Castro family in Israel. So right now that's something very important that's taking place there, very close to home, so lack of better description.
Yeah, it's probably something that we could begin to study both sides of the issue as to how and what happened. Anyway, if you watch the movie The Godfather, and when they're back going been to Cuba, and when Mayor Lansky was down there, and they had the casinos, and Michael Corleone was going down there to invest and looking at it. And while he's there, they had it was a coup of sorts, where the military came in and installed new leadership. That's the beginning of it, of what happened. And when that government went in, they seized properties of the wealthy. And one of the people that a lot of land and assets were seized by the government was I think, I have to check my facts, but I think it was the largest cattle producer or beef producer in the United States. Had a lot of land there and had a lot of influence on our government. And I think that's where it began when the embargo started. And it's probably a bit more complicated, but, and then the communist piece comes in, and aligned with the Russians. And I believe it was Khrushchev, and that's when the Bay of Pigs missiles being installed, and all the controversies of President Kennedy and what was going on there. And so that was back, 59, 60 to 62, around that time. And since that time, it's pretty much just kind of languished, as it were. But there is a lot of commerce going on, a lot of different things going on. And, even to the point where in another movie that had a part of history in it was Scarface. And if you look at Scarface, you saw when all those Cubans were coming into Miami, and what Castro had done is basically said, all right, everybody that wants to go can go, but particularly we're going to release you from prison. and all you prisoners or whatever, you got to get out of here.
But anyway, the talk on the wall, but right now you brought us up to date around the world, and we also have people Congress wise is going on right now in Israel. That's going on, and this is very, very something that can involve a whole lot of nations that can lead to a whole lot of things in the wrong direction. So let me send us out here, Chuck.
Stay tuned for. We're going to be coming with some more information about how you can tune in to a virtual conference for Uganda coming up October 17th, and then if you're so inclined, and we still have a few spots left for the Senegal fact-finding mission, we'd love to have you join us there. And we're looking forward to getting more about the Missouri Black Chamber event that's coming up in April. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
My name is Alan Frozen. We'll let you in Congress. See you on Saturday, along with Elder, Reverend Alan Lyles, and also Mr. Scott. Thank you so much for all you did this day. And on that note, we said, let's see you again next week. Another great program. Got to take us out of here.